What is up, and welcome to a special Beyond the Arc with Brandon Silver's event, where I have brought together my co-host from every college football show I have on my network to discuss everything that's going on in college football today. We're joined by Petey from the Gamecocks football captain's log and Brett from Brett's Bets, because let's be real, college football coaches are losing their minds. So we're going to talk about them in a segment I just made up called 3 Guys, 4 Downs. First of all, gentlemen, how are you doing? Petey?
I'm doing well.
And Brett?
Doing great. Gonna do some trout fishing this weekend.
That's nice. Okay. Well, first down, as you know, that's the down that we start with when we play football. So this one is Dabo versus Tyler from Spartanburg. If you follow college football, you know in Dabo's weekly call-in show, he had a caller, Tyler from Spartanburg, who roasted him with Bible quotes, comparing him to Tommy Bowden, calling him arrogant, saying something changed after 2018, pointing out he's the second highest paid coach in college football at $11.5 million a year, and that's way too much for him to be 4-4. All this stuff, and Dabo just ranted back at him, just a scorched earth, fire-breathing rant that was very impressive. What did y'all think about the rant? What stood out about the rant? Petey, you first.
As far as the arrogance thing, it certainly held true in my opinion. He talks. Dabo came off as somebody that has had this, tremendous success at Clemson for the last 15 years, when he sounds like he's never really been challenged on anything of substance. And when somebody finally came in and did that, he had no idea how to react, and then self-imploded and showed off how really arrogant he is. It did not come off well, in my opinion.
No, because he was bringing up basically everything positive he's ever done in his life as a response.
Yep. Which apparently he's never failed. He's 53 years old and he's never failed at anything, which
not a single time.
Glaring black eye as a person.
Yes. Put yourself out there, Dabo. Brett, I know you were very excited to talk about this. I will also note, both of these gentlemen grew up in Spartanburg County, so they have extra special insights.
So to get to what you were just talking about, whenever you hear a coach start getting into that, my record is this, over the past 10 years we've done this, in the past 30 years before I was here, this school didn't ever do this. And really, when they start talking about how many fucking players they've graduated, that program is on the outs. That is, I've seen that with Will Muschamp with us. You remember Muschamp started, we've won more games than any coach in the first 3 years in the history of a program. You remember when he was saying that shit? And it was year 5. Like, we had played 2 more years after that.
Yes.
But when they get into shit like that, things are going bad. And like I said, really, when academics comes into it and they start talking about we've graduated 95% of our players, things are going terribly.
Yeah, that's not a good sign. It especially means that your players are not to the point where they want to go to the NFL instead of stay for their 5th year at Clemson.
Yeah.
Exactly. And he did mention it was crazy to me how he had all of these stats off the top of his head. Like, it's been so and so many years of 10 plus wins, and y'all didn't win a national championship for 35 years till I showed up. We're the only team to do this outside of Bama and Georgia, and the appreciation used to outweigh the expectation, but now it's the other way around. Like, he was just going off and had all these, like he had memorized a media kit or something and just started spitting it out.
Yeah,
I had not thought about that. That proves he went to this with that in his tool belt. He knew
he was ready for
to get one of these questions. Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
I wish we had, because I've only heard audio, but in my mind, he had like one of the QB wrist things, and he's just reading off. All right, 12 years in a row, 10 plus wins, this, that, and the other.
Yeah, he came off very condescending to Tyler, who he called him a smart ass kid.
Yes,
and I'm sure you've never failed in your life.
Yeah,
I'm 53 years old. I ain't gonna take this from someone that's 12.
Also, the age thing. What was the point of bringing up his age? You think?
He's 53, so I think he thinks that means he should be respected.
Update your logs, Dabo. 53.
He's got 3 kids. He mentioned 3 sons.
Yeah,
I know one of them at least plays on the team. Is maybe one of his kids is 12 years old and is just an asshole. I don't know. That's just
just like you sound
every
just
bad
like
person he encounters now must be a 12-year-old.
Yeah, that must be it. So what do y'all think? Was there anything out of which, and we've touched on a little bit in regards to Tyler, but out of what both these men were saying, or a kid and a man, depending on who you ask, that was right? What was wrong? Brett, we'll start with you. Was there anything? We'll start with Tyler too. What about Tyler's point do you think, I guess, stung the most to get him to rant like this?
Well, let me this is what I have the most to say about. So let me start with Dabo, and that'll fold into Tyler. So I'm gonna get a little bit philosophical. So the one thing Dabo said that I think was very spot on, he kept saying it's bad to have an expectation, you need to have appreciation. That is wonderful life advice. Like for your regular life, that's fantastic. That's like the best recipe for having an unhappy life is to start expecting all the things that you want just to come to you and to quit appreciating the things that you have. So great life advice. Problem is, this ain't fucking real life. You're getting paid $11 million. Nobody gets paid $11 million to do their job. This ain't real life, Dabo. Like football and sports, this is where I know I've talked about this with Silvers. I'm sure I've talked about it with you, PD. This is the thing we use to get our base instincts out, to get us out of that tribal warfare bullshit that we've lived most of our lives in. Let's go out on the field and hit each other and yell and cuss each other out and hate each other. So we don't do it in real life. So yeah, like you're getting paid $11 million. The expectations are high. Tyler, I'm sure Tyler's not like this in real life. He's not like this with his family and shit probably, but this is it. This is what it is. This is big time college football. This is where we let our base instincts out and we yell and cuss each other out and shit. This is what it's all about. I love it. I'm glad Tyler called in. I'm glad Dabo went back at him,
Yeah. I mean, the question that Tyler asked is certainly valid. How do you justify $11.5 million a year for a 4-4 season?
Yeah.
And I think that Dabo has fallen into a situation that he exceeded expectations, not due to his own accord, but because he had 3 great quarterbacks and they kept getting better and better. Yeah. And all of his coaches rode those players, coattails to big money.
And from Tyler's perspective, Cade Klubnik is just as highly rated as a recruit as any of those guys you're thinking of. All the receivers and everybody, as far as recruiting rankings, the recruiting has never fallen off there. So the star ratings and all the player talent would seem on paper to be what it's always been. Dabo's still there. They lost some coordinators, but Garrett Riley was the hottest OC name in the country. So there's no reason that the fan base shouldn't expect for them to be undefeated right now.
Yeah, and that's what I think.
It seems like they've lost their coaching acumen in the last 2 years. As they still have the stellar defense, and then they have had 2 highly rated quarterbacks come in Uliungalei, who transferred out and now is doing really well at Oregon State, and Cade Klubnik, who they thought was going to be, even better, who seems to not be performing. What's going on in Clemson? What's the problem?
That proves, and this kind of fits with Dabo's big point about fumbles too. How much does this show how luck is just involved? Because if you think back to, I know at least their first national title, they could have lost 5 games that season. You remember all the miraculous wins they pulled off?
Yeah.
I mean, they just threaded the needle so many times. Deshaun Watson, a big recruit and all that, but he was a 5-star, but he was really a 12-star, it turned out. He's maybe the best college football quarterback ever. And, every receiver was just Randy Moss for them that year. And now, when Dabo says, if we didn't lead the nation in fumbles, we'd be 8-0. Hell, he's probably right. But that just goes to show you that the luck can go both ways. The luck was on their side when they won these national titles, and now it's not. And here you are.
A game of inches, some might say. So I think that, to me, the part that got him really ramped up was when Tyler kept mentioning his salary.
Yeah.
Which I found interesting because Dabo has some very strong thoughts on players not getting paid.
Yeah.
And then Tyler's like, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't be paying your ass neither. and Dabo's like, wait a second. First of all, that's my line. He also hit him with Bible verses, which is also a Dabo thing. It kind of reminded me of, he was just using all Dabo stuff, like when Tupac rapped "Hit 'Em Up" over Biggie's beat, just to talk all kind of shit about Biggie. Like, that's what Tyler was doing to Dabo, and he just couldn't take it. And he snapped, and it made me wonder too. After listening to people talk about it, could Dabo coach somewhere else? Because he said, "Hey, let me know, I'll leave."
He did keep saying that.
Could he actually coach somewhere else and succeed, or is this like a Clemson deal?
I think it's a Clemson deal. I mean, it's be very hard for them to pull the trigger and get rid of him, especially after winning 2 championships. But it just, in this day and age of the NIL and the transfer portal, Dabo has made it very clear he wants no part of that, which makes it very hard to compete in the same sense. He seems to not want to evolve or change his philosophy at all. But if you want to play with the big boys in college football, you're going to have to get with the times. And we all know he doesn't want to pay players, and has had that stance for a long time. I think he said, y'all start paying players is the day I leave. Well, we started doing that, and you didn't leave, Dabo.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I think you summed it up. Playing with the big boys. I mean, that goes back to, if you're making $11 million and you're going 4-4, the fans are going to come after you. I mean, that's what playing with the big boys is. I was going to say that, for years they talked about him going to Bama. That would never fucking work. I don't think he would ever succeed at Bama.
If you lose one game at Bama, you're on the hot seat.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't be able to take that.
Him and Clemson's a match made in heaven. The only other place that I think he would be a fit is Texas A&M, just because they're such damn cultish weirdos like Clemson. I was about to say. I never thought about this. PD, you make the point he's not with the NIL game. That's what Texas A&M is now. They got more money than anybody, so maybe he wouldn't work there either.
Well, I mean, I don't see how A&M. I don't know how they're doing so terribly. It makes no sense. They've got more money than anybody in the NIL, and they're buying all these players, but they can't. I mean, they only beat South Carolina by 14 points.
Yeah,
I think it's because they're stupid and their coaches are stupid.
Yeah, that seems to be the biggest issue there. I mean, Jimbo Fisher won a national championship game, but it was with Winston Jameis Winston and a great defense.
Yep. So I'm going to stand firm in my A&M hate. What else did I find interesting? Okay. He's talked about all this as well, but he never mentioned his players at all. He talked about, I work for this, that, and the other, the board of trustees.
Yeah.
For someone he's not a great public speaker. I'm going to be honest. We all know that, but as a coach, shouldn't you at least lie and say, I do it so I can enrich these young men's lives? It's kind of like he by not saying that, he said the quiet part out loud by omitting the fact that he coaches to mold and shape the lives of young men.
I hate that statement of, I work for the board of trustees. Really, and this is what I try to get South Carolina fans to understand, because anytime, we're such a passive fan base that never gets mad, despite how bad we are, despite how much resources we have. The coaches work for us. We're the fucking boss here. We're the ones that pour all the money into the program. And yeah, the board of trustees might make the final decision or whatever, but really the fan base is the boss. I look at Shane Beamer as my employee. I'm one of 10 million or whatever bosses, but I think that's the way we should look at it. And again, going back to Tyler, personally, am I going to call into Beamer's show at any point? Probably not. When I was a 12-year-old kid like Tyler is, maybe I would have, but.
Except for Tyler's like 30 probably.
But I appreciate that. I appreciate a fan base demanding excellence. I wish we would do more of it.
So I guess that leads me into the Gamecocks football captain's log question. Should we, as Gamecock fans, be calling up and lighting into our coaching staff regularly? Petey.
Hell yeah. I'm tired of sucking, dude.
Get this dude on the phone right now. I tell you what.
The only saving grace, is that win against Clemson last year. And somehow if we pull it off again, then I'll be pacified for another year. But yeah, we have consistently been accepting of mediocre football, and even more so of subpar football. And speaking to, him being our employee, I don't buy gear and tickets and stuff when we suck. I don't want to go watch us suck for 3.5 hours. That's not any fun. We need to hold some feet to the fire. And
even the broken ones.
Changes. Yeah.
So
coordinator.
I'm glad. Okay. So
I've been in that stadium with you when we sucked plenty of times, bud.
Yes, I know.
Yeah. Sad but true. Well, guess what? Good news for Tyler and everyone up there in Pickens. Clemson has a game this week. And good news for y'all. We have an expert at picking games. So Brett's going to go get him. He'll come back. 2 different people. Oh, my gosh. All right. So Clemson at home against Notre Dame this Saturday at noon on ABC. Watch Dabo coach for the Board of Trustees. Mr. Expert, what is your pick?
All right. So I am the Spartanburg spread beater.
That's true.
As we've mentioned. So this feels like a circle the wagons type moment for Clemson. We know how motivational Dabo is. In that rant, he never threw his players under the bus like Deion, who we'll get to later, did. So it feels like this could be a moment, and it's going to be galvanizing for the fan base too. Most of those fans are going to hate Tyler now and show up and cheer the team even harder. So this feels like a big circle the wagon, highly motivational game for Clemson. And it's Notre Dame too. That's always a big game. So my instinct going into the week before I knew what the spreads were was, let's take Clemson here. But then I go in and I look, and they're only getting 3.5. Vegas still overvalues this team way too much. So I'm taking Notre Dame. Vegas, last week we picked this and got it right. They were laying 10 on the road to NC State. It's just crazy. Vegas just cannot get with the program with Clemson. So again, until Vegas adjusts, we're going against Clemson. Man. Notre Dame.
And Notre Dame, much more handsome coach.
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah, all right. It is second down, and we have to talk about the Michigan spy scandal. The NCAA is investigating Michigan's football program for an elaborate sign-stealing scheme centered around this one guy, Connor Stalions, which that's a great name, who would go to Michigan opponents' games, record their sideline signals, pay people to go to the games when he couldn't make it. And now it's come out that he was apparently on the Central Michigan sideline dressed as a staff member, because it's a lot easier to steal signs when you're actually on the opponent's sideline. Michigan and Harbaugh have denied wrongdoing so far. It's important to note that they clearly know Stalions because he was on the payroll at Michigan. So what do y'all think? Is this a big deal to y'all as far as the sign stealing? Should the playoff committee consider this when they're coming out with their playoff rankings, which they just did week 1? What is y'all's general feeling about this controversy? Brett, glad to see you're back. Why don't you lead us off?
Okay, so I think this is going to be an interesting discussion because we've got 3 different people here that played 3 different sports. I've been on baseball teams where we were encouraged to steal signs, not like cheat and hide in the dugout and all that shit. But if you're on second base and you are looking in at the catcher and he shows a 1 or a 2, you signal to the hitter. So we had a system for that. So to me, that kind of thing is fine. That's like the low-level sign stealing. And then the further you get down the line, the more we get into a gray area and then a bad area, like Houston Astros with the fucking trash cans and the spy cameras and all that bullshit. That's way too far. You know, they should have the World Series vacated and never play again. I hate them. But what's interesting is where on the line do y'all draw the line? And where does Michigan's scheme fall within that? PD, you tell me about, did y'all ever, when you played, did you ever have any kind of sign stealing shit? Okay.
No, never had any sign stealing, although, you know, at our level of, you know, high school football, we were barely, we weren't really winning games to begin with, but us being able to steal the other team's signs would not have made much sense. We trying to get a play.
You're worried about getting your own
hard part. I sign stealing makes more sense to me in baseball than it does football. I don't know how you really incorporate it into the high speed of a game. Yeah. Like on defense, okay, maybe they're, you can tell if they're running it or they're passing it. How do you get that sign from the sideline to your other guy on your sideline and then into the game within 25 seconds? And if they go, I mean, if it's a fast-paced offense, even worse. It just, I can certainly see how it can be, an advantage, but I don't know how much of an advantage it is. Just with the speed of today's game, it just seems difficult for me to understand, but I never played on that level.
I will say too, there was pictures posted on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. Hasn't been confirmed, but showing a picture of Stalions on Central Michigan sideline, and it looked like he had one of them like spy glasses type things, which would be that would be so funny. And the more you read about this guy, the more you would think that he would do that because he sounds like an obsessive lunatic. For me, it's kind of what Petey's saying, where, okay, if you steal the signs, I could see how it would help. And I'll read some stats about Michigan's record in a little bit. but you still have to execute the play.
Yeah.
And you should be good enough to do that anyways. As far as basketball is concerned, you see it in the NBA playoffs. These teams have played each other so much, they know each other's calls by heart, and they have to still go out and execute even without stealing anything. So I'm not really up in arms over it based on what we know. I think that sneaking onto another team's sidelines probably crosses a line, but it's more funny to me than anything. And having a recording device in your glasses while you're doing it also crosses a line, but still more humorous than like evil.
Yeah.
So I'm not ready to get my pitchfork and march up to Ann Arbor just yet.
So go ahead.
In football, it's all like, it's a lot of it is situational. So, basically you've watched their film all year. So basically what they're going to run. They're not like they're inventing a new offense every week. They might throw in a couple different plays, but it's not like you're getting much of an insight that you wouldn't just get from watching film and seeing what their tendencies are. So, I mean, if it's 3rd and 12, probably going to be a pass. Unless unless it's Navy or somebody.
Yeah, so let me read these stats real quick, and then Brett, I know you've got something to say. So before the time period when the sign stealing is alleged to have started, Michigan was 47-22. That's a 68% winning percentage. They were 34-16 in the Big Ten, which is also 68%. Since it started, they've gone 33-3, which is 92%, and then 22-1 in the Big Ten, which is 96% winning percentage.
I feel like that coincides just with them getting better, though. Because
did them getting better have to do with the sign stealing?
Talent-wise, I mean,
okay,
like just recruiting better players. But I don't know. Hell, maybe the players will look better because they know what's coming. I don't know.
It's hard to know without having like a control group to it's one of those things that you'll probably never have an answer for. I mean, it's kind of like all the other scandals in the NFL, like Deflategate or the sign stealing scandals. It's hard to really know how much of a impact that plays on the overall game.
Yeah.
Now, if these are all these games that they were losing, were they by a lot, and then they started winning by small margins. But it seems like now they're consistently winning by large margins, regardless.
Yeah, and I do want to know too. Do y'all think Harbaugh knew about this?
For sure.
Yeah. Surely.
He is an egomaniac. If he does, there's no way he does not know everything that's going on there.
That's my favorite thing about college coaches and scandals, where they're like, "Oh, I had no idea."
Yeah. So I guess for me, I was talking about like the further you go down the line, it gets worse. And I guess to try to put my finger on what makes one sign stealing scheme worse than another, like how hard you have to work to get the signs. So if we're talking, like a lot of teams hold the board up with the Lamborghini and the different
Homer
images.
Simpson Lamborghini
on it. Yeah. If you've got somebody on the other sideline during the game that figures out what that shit means and then starts telling the defense what play is coming, that's all good. That's the other team's fault for not masking it well enough. Just like in my scenario, if the catcher's not going to do his fingers a certain way to not let me on second base, that's your fault. So, but when you start putting a guy on the sideline of another team in that gear, then you're going a little too far.
Yes, dressed as a CMU staffer. First of all, why do you need to do this against Central Michigan?
That shows a dedication to this sign stealing thing that's just amazing.
Well, you're trying to get signed like Michigan State's signs.
Again,
CMU. Well, yeah, I mean,
Michigan State.
Yeah, but
Like I would dedicate everything. Okay, Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State. Gross. I wouldn't waste time doing that. I also, the amount of money you'd have to pay me to go sit through Big Ten football games, you couldn't afford me. Couldn't afford me at all. And so, okay, so that was the other question. The playoff committee said they did not take this into account when they came out with their initial rankings. Should they?
I don't see how you can.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to have much bearing on the actual team, and maybe it might have a little bit of effect, but it's still like if they keep winning, it's not the players' fault that they're winning. And somebody stole signs that at the CMU game 12 weeks before. But
are they is the theory that this has ended now? From this point going forward, they're not doing it, right?
So the theory is it ended this season.
Okay. So, yeah, it'll work itself out then.
Yeah. And I do find it funny that the story came out this morning, too, that all the other Big Ten coaches want Michigan punished immediately. Like, of course they do.
Of course.
Yeah. No shit.
Like,
yeah. I have to relate this back to Clemson really quick. Brent Venables was clearly stealing signs when he was the defense coordinator. Do y'all remember that?
Yeah.
I don't.
So their defense was just phenomenal, some of those national title years and playoff years. And then the year that they got beat by LSU in the title game, they beat Ohio State the round before that. But they gave up a ton of points to Ohio State, just got gashed. And it was very clear, and there had been some rumblings about Venables stealing signs, so I didn't just pull this from watching the game. I had heard rumors. And then when you watch the game, it was clear Ohio State was running their offense in a way that it was impossible to steal the signs. They would go to the line, have a play, and switch it at the last second and then run it to where there was no way the defense could adjust. And they just gashed them. I mean, Clemson defense looked slow. I mean, so it was very clear that they were stealing signs.
That is,
I'm sure it's rampant.
Yeah.
We were just talking about that with Clemson. Like, you're supposed to be crazy about college football. And that's one of the ways the crazies can come out is by stealing signs and elaborate scheme, which brings me to the Gamecocks football captain's log question of the segment. So Connor Stalions, clearly a crazy person. Both his parents graduated from Michigan, but he went to the Naval Academy because he thought it would help his coaching resume when he decided to coach later. And he also put together a 550 to 600 page Michigan manifesto for how he should run the Michigan program when he becomes head coach. So the question is, should we be doing this for Gamecock football? Do you want to get together with me this weekend and put together a 600-page manifesto?
No.
Okay. So we're not bad fans because we haven't done this.
No, we're not bad fans. We also have lives.
Doesn't sound like Connor does.
There's no way that he was ever going to become the Michigan football coach. They're not hiring him at any point.
Certainly not now.
Ever. Well, yeah, of course. There's anyone that goes out and would go out and do some weird shit like this is going to have a lot more skeletons in their closet, especially over the years. And it's very unlikely. You have to be the coach at Michigan. You have to be a head coach somewhere else and win a lot.
Yeah.
So unless he goes back to Navy and gets that job and then starts winning, I doubt he ever ends up at Ann Arbor as a head coach. I can't see it happening.
Imagine if this guy had called Dabo. Like Tyler He was too busy over and serving the country to come up with a manifesto. Imagine if he had someone like this calling him, like, well, on page 397 of my manifesto, it says you actually need to be a proponent of NIL. And also, have you heard this Bible verse about how you're an arrogant dickhead, Dabo?
Thank you, Connor.
Yeah. Connor Stalions. Great porn name. All right. Now, Michigan actually plays this weekend. And so at this time, we will turn to the expert for his expert pick. They are playing at home against Purdue. The spread is 1,000,000. 7:30 NBC if you want to steal some signs yourself. Mr. Expert, what are you thinking, especially now that they don't have their secret weapon, Connor Stalions?
All right. One of the most impressive things about human beings is their ability to always make a situation where we're the right ones, we're the victims. I fully believe Michigan will come out of this thinking we've been wrongfully done by, we did nothing wrong, and they're going to go out there. The fan base is going to be fired up. The team's going to be fired up. They're going to beat the shit out of Purdue to prove a point and to, wash themselves clean of all this. Purdue sucks. I think Michigan wins easily.
To your point, they did this earlier this year when Harbaugh voluntarily sat out games as a result of a hamburger investigation. And they had T-shirts made about it. So I think that's a pretty safe bet as well. We are moving on to third down. Deion Sanders. I watched this game. They lost to UCLA. Deion was asked about how he was going to keep his son and quarterback Shadur upright and healthy with his offensive line, which has been one of the worst in the country, giving up the second most sacks in all of FBS. Deion responded, quote, "The big picture, you get new linemen. The big picture, you get new linemen. That's the picture, and I'm going to paint it perfectly." What do y'all think about Deion's coaching style of calling out players at press conferences? We'll start with you, Petey.
I don't have a problem with it. He's not saying anything that's not true. The offensive line has been absolutely terrible, and I am surprised that they are worse than the Gamecocks offensive line. But obviously, he might have hurt some feelings on the offensive line, and he doesn't really want those players back next year anyways. But he's getting big-time recruits at offensive line, and the odds of them being there next year is very slim. So he doesn't really care about hurting their feelings. Now, they can either take it one of two ways. They can, get all sad and butthurt about it and basically quit, or they can get pissed off and actually do something, block for him. But Deion is going to tell you the truth no matter what, and I don't have a problem with him telling me the truth.
I will say the Gamecocks have given up the fifth most sacks with 34.
It's not by much.
Yeah. So, Brett, do you agree with Petey's viewpoint?
Yeah. So, first of all, you hear all coaches say something like this. They say it a lot nicer. They'll say something like, a coach in his first year, especially like Deion, will say, we need to recruit better. We'll be better next year. We're going to get more guys in. We need more depth. They say shit like that. They mean the same fucking thing,
yep.
So that's one thing. But Deion is clearly running his program differently than like a Shane Beamer, for instance. Beamer's all about love and family and all this, and Deion seems to be, we're going to be great. He has a lot of aspirational, motivational stuff he talks to, but it's all about being great, elite football players, and I love it. I think it's entertaining. I think it's great. I'd love to, if I was an elite. If I sucked, I wouldn't want to play for a coach like that. But if I was really good, I'd love to play for a coach like that. So I love it. I mean, that's just the way. That's the way he's running things. I think he's going to end up. Players want to play for him. Clearly,
yeah.
He's killed the transfer portal and he's recruiting well. So Yeah,
he is. Sorry to interrupt. He's basically the opposite of Dabo, where he's going to come and he's going to use all of the available tools that he has, the NIL and the transfer portal. And guess what's happening? He's getting really good players. He's won 4 more games than this year than at Colorado than they did last year. He is more evolved than your typical, head coach in college football.
That's a great point, because I've thought about like a lot of the typical criticisms you hear about Deion, and I have my own, but they're a little bit different than what you normally hear. And I wonder if he's like the perfect college football coach in the sense that he represents what college football really is. And he's doing everything that coaches typically do, but he's just more open about the stuff he's doing and better about it. Like using the transfer portal or NIL or self-promotion, taking things personally and using that as motivation. If he's like, I wonder, like, is that the problem? He's just so much better at doing it than better in the sense that more skilled, not really a judgment on whether it's right or wrong, but just better at coaching college football. And he's cooler than the other coaches doing it too. And so that's the controversy. Other than the real issues I have with him, I wonder if that's the case.
It's obvious that players want to play for him.
Yeah.
That he draws in. I mean, he wants the best recruits, and the best recruits want to play for him because of that personality he has. And then, he's seen to them, I would think, as the guy that could take them to that next level. Now, if you're on that level where you might not be on, a Division I player, you're not going to want to play for him, because why would you? I mean, he's there to get you to the NFL, and if that's not in your repertoire, there's no point in talking to him. But he basically came into Colorado and said, "Hey, I don't want any of you guys. I'm gonna get my own guys here.
Yeah,
and if you're here in the spring, great, but we're going to try and find somebody else because y'all suck." And I appreciate the honesty, but it's not what we're used to hearing.
Yeah, in a way, he's just like every other big-time college football coach in that he's trying to get the best players, he's trying to be great, but he's different in how open he is about it. Maybe that's all it is.
He doesn't sugarcoat it for you.
Yeah, and it kind of reminds me of, in college basketball, John Calipari, when one and done was a thing with the NBA, and he was like, "Come here and we'll get you to the NBA after your freshman season." And all the other coaches were like, "Oh, no, we're going to get you your degree and you're going to go work at Enterprise and this, that, and the other." And everyone hated Calipari for it. And it worked out. He was able to use it. And now as other coaches have been like, "You know what? We'll help you get to the NBA too, because we want you to come here so we can win." Now things have kind of evened out for Cal at Kentucky. But that's really what this aspect of things reminds me of.
And Cal still he still had a positive, I don't know the word to use, a positive aspirational message, because he would talk a lot about, we're breaking the cycle of poverty for these families. We're doing the right thing for these kids. It was still like, we're doing the right thing for these kids.
Yeah.
That was still the message he put out there. It just, the right thing was to go to the NBA and make millions of dollars after 1 year. It wasn't to, like you say, get a degree and go work at Enterprise.
Well, especially when you couldn't pay players.
Yeah.
Pay players.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
How do y'all think he's done so far? I mean, they've kind of had a weird season in which they've kind of lived mini seasons all in one. Like, they were the underdog, no expectations, coming in, upset the national runner-up, who turned out not to be good, obviously. Then they have this three-game undefeated streak where all of a sudden all you hear about is Colorado this, Colorado that, and then they lose, and they kind of turn into a team that's somehow underachieving. How has he handled it? Because I know a lot of people, especially when they were winning, were like, we can't wait to see Deion lose and how he handles that. Do y'all think he's been handling it well so far? Petey, we'll start with you.
I mean, Deion is going to be Deion. He's never changed who he is. I think he's handled it fine. People love to hate on him because he's got that big ego, he's had that, since he was at Florida State. So
yes,
he's used to that. It's not like a big deal to him. We're not us, but media is the one that makes it a big deal. Deion is going to be fine regardless. I don't know how long he stays in Colorado. I think he parlays this to an NFL gig at some point, whether that's next year or 2 or 3 years down the road, who knows? But Deion has proved that he knows how to win, and he'll be fine. I have Deion's going to be perfectly okay.
Brett, what say you?
So, well, first of all, I see him always staying in college. To me, his biggest skill is recruiting, and you go to the NFL, you just lose that. So I wouldn't see why he would ever leave a college game.
I'm not saying that that wouldn't be his. He wouldn't be better in college, but I think he wants to be in the NFL. Is my hypothesis.
So we mentioned earlier about when you're Dabo Swinney making $11 million a year, you go 4-4. It comes with the territory. People are going to be mad. Deion I don't know how much he's making. It ain't that much. But when you have a big personality, you have these, all the commercials, big press conferences, talk the way he talks, you set yourself up, you put yourself up there, and like Petey said, when people want to hate you. So the first sign of any failure, people are going to have the knives out for you.
Yeah.
And that he doesn't care. I'm sure that doesn't bother him. But, they're 4-4 now. Any other coach that got Colorado to 4-4 at this point and pulled some of the upsets they got, they're talking about them as like, oh, what an amazing job this guy's doing. They're building the program. It's amazing. Deion's not going to get that kind of praise just because he's, the way he handles himself, which I think is great. So, to win anything at Colorado is amazing. To recruit as well as he is, nobody on earth would be doing more at Colorado than what he's done and what he's doing right now. No question about it. I'm extremely impressed with what they've accomplished.
Yeah. And I feel like with Colorado, when they started losing, so when they started coming into teams that really know how to play defense against them, especially because their offensive line is so terrible that they can't keep Shador upright for longer than half a second. So that's been their downfall. I mean, they haven't really been blown out. I think
Oregon
28-16 game was, but that once he gets somebody to protect his quarterback, they'll be fine.
So that's another thing, because I know he's talking about, and we'll just bring in more offensive linemen, and obviously they have a problem on defense as well. That seems to be, to me, the issue with the portal and putting together teams is it doesn't seem to work out defensively and on the offensive line
exactly
to bring guys in.
Yeah.
So I wonder how he's going to find that balance.
Well, Petey, you'll know more about this than me, but defense, you've got to have a good defense. It ain't getting 11 guys out there. You've got to have 25, 30 decent players to have good defense for one. So that you're never going to address that through the portal. And then offensive line, I think, is such a developmental position. It's so in demand that the few good offensive linemen that do transfer get snatched up. It's the hardest position to pull out of the portal for. So
I feel like good offensive linemen that don't really transfer unless they're coming, changing divisions.
Yeah.
And even still, that's hard to do if you jump, go from an FCS school or D2 school up to a Power 5 conference. That's a huge change. And if you're good enough to start at offensive line in the Power 5, you're not going anywhere else. Why would you? You're going to stay there, improve, get your 3 years, and then go to the NFL. So offensive line, yeah, you're right. It's not a transfer portal type deal. You got to recruit those guys and build that usually over a couple of years.
Beautiful. Well, that brings us to our Gamecocks football captain's log question of the down, third down. Petey, should we, as Gamecock football fans, be threatening people on our team? If so, who?
Yeah. Let's threaten the defensive coordinators.
Okay. I like it.
The offensive line, the defensive line, our defensive backs. Let's all get them all threatened. So
everyone. All right. We're gonna call them. We're gonna get them on the
entire defense. Let's just get rid of y'all and bring in everybody else.
Tyler from Spartanburg hotline, and we're gonna light them up. And it just so happens Colorado is at home this week against number 16 Oregon State, 10 p.m. on ESPN. We'll see who he threatens this game. Mr. Expert, who are you picking in this one?
All right. So I talked earlier about how I thought Clemson's game, this is a circle the wagon type scenario. I don't know that it works out for Colorado in that way because, again, we all have no problem with him saying what he said about his offensive linemen, but that's probably not conducive to getting them to play better the upcoming game. And they're probably not capable of playing better, to be honest. So I think they're going to continue to struggle. Oregon State is legitimately good. They've been under the radar, but they've been very solid for a few years. Again, tying it back to Clemson, transfer quarterback DJ Uiagalelei is having the season of his life.
Yeah.
Against that weak Colorado defense that we talked about. I think that's the right side. I think you take Oregon State.
Yeah, and I think that I would like to hear old Tyler's thoughts about DJ's great season.
Yeah.
It's you hate it for him. But anyways, all right. Fourth down. And I've tried to keep it appropriate we're going to talk about Iowa on fourth down. They've seen a lot of fourth downs. And as a result, they have announced that Brian Ferentz, their offensive coordinator, will step down at the end of the season. Coming into the season, he had to win 7 games and average 25 points per game. Now, it's important to note those points didn't even have to come from the offense, but he hasn't done it. They are somehow 6-2, but they've only scored more than 25 points twice, so they're not close again. Most recent loss was to Minnesota, 12-10. That seems to be the straw that broke the camel's back. 127 total yards of offense in that one. And the final drive to get them into field goal range to win it went backwards and ended with an interception. Rumor is Kirk Ferentz, the head coach, his dad, might step down after the season as well because he is sad about this. What do y'all think about Iowa's trying to make their offense better by getting rid of their head coach's son? Brett, as the only one here with a son, lead the way.
I have tried to put myself in that position. Like if my son was my employee, could I jettison his ass if he sucked this bad? I think I could, man. I think I could do it. I mean, you're not only you're embarrassing me, you're embarrassing yourself out here, you know? So, I mean, there's just so many. We're probably the only people talking about Iowa, but they're fascinating. It's such a fascinating team. You've got the nepotism angle. Kirk Ferentz is interesting as hell to talk about because he was – PD, correct me if I'm wrong. He's been there, what, like 30 years now?
Yeah.
Too long. So
when we were like teenagers or in high school, PD, watching a lot of college football, he was thought of as like a kind of an offensive guru quarterback master kind of guy, the way I remember it.
I remember him being rumored. Iowa, in my opinion, has always been like defensive minded. I feel like he's always been a defensive guy, but I don't remember ever thinking about Iowa past 10 years ago.
But they always ran a pro style. I guess it's kind of like a better version of Jimbo Fisher if you go back far enough. I don't know, a pro style, quarterback focused offense that doesn't necessarily score a ton of points. They rely on the defense. But I don't know. That's just the way I've always thought of it. But their defense is just legitimately extremely good. Yeah. And they have been for a long time. And I know they're not getting that good of recruits. So it's the system they've got in place up there. And they can't score points. And I don't know. I mean, if you lose Kirk Ferentz, can you keep the offensive coordinator to keep the coach happy? That seems like a bad precedent to set, but I do think they'll fall apart without Kirk Ferentz.
Probably. Yeah. I would be surprised if, Iowa has any kind of success after he leaves. But if I'm Kirk Ferentz, why would I not want to go out and get a really good offensive coordinator and actually compete for a championship? Because their defense is ungodly good.
Yes.
I don't know what their average points per game they give up is like. It's got to be like 10 at the most.
I think it was 14. It was 14. Yeah.
But then you can't. It's amazing that they've won 6 games when they can't score at all.
Yeah.
It's incredible. We'll never see anything like this again.
No. So they are dead last in the country in total offense. They had Cade McNamara, the Michigan transfer, at quarterback. He got hurt. Their quarterback now is Deacon Hill. He's been there a couple games. Guess what his completion percentage is?
48.
37.
37.8.
Oh my God.
Yeah. That was a complete guess.
You were joking, dude, when you said that.
37.8. And we've played, so 6-2, 8 games played. How many passes have been caught by wide receivers this year?
In 8 games, 90.
I'm going to say 62.
31.
Jeez.
Yeah. Yeah. Just awful because
oh my Lord.
If you don't know, I write a Big Ten article every week for Franchise Tag UK to enlighten my friends across the pond on Big Ten football. So I've watched some Iowa games. They throw it to their tight ends, and very rarely is it completed. And that's just what they do. And they hope they got a kid, Cooper DeJean, I think is his name, who's a defensive back, and he returns punts, and they hope he can break a punt and score that way, or he's returned interceptions for touchdowns. I don't know why they haven't tried him some snaps on offense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. So
is he the guy that had that punt return called back?
Yep.
Last week
with the invalid fair catch signal.
Yeah.
And that basically seems to have cost.
That's how they win games, is by, sounds like, us on special teams last year.
Yeah. It's just ridiculous, which is even funnier because, as I said, the 25 points per game did not have to come from the offense. Could have been field goals, could have been defense, special teams. And he just couldn't do it. Did not even come close.
No. Yeah.
Imagine how good a shape that defense is in.
That's
because the offense goes 3 and out every time.
Yeah.
And I was about to say on the field all game.
As good as we think the defense is, you have to multiply it by like 3 because that's incredible. When you, even a normally good defense would be giving up 30 a game just because they stay on the field. For what they're doing, it's just
Do you know what the time of possession is, Silvers?
I do not, but I'm looking up punter stats. They have punted 55 times. Their punter is incredible. Torrey Taylor, 48.7 yards a punt. And he's put 22 of them inside the 20.
He's our greatest offensive weapon.
Yep. Just pin them deep and hope something good happens.
You know who they need to hire if Ferentz does leave? They need to hire Will Muschamp.
Because that would be like the perfect level of offense.
It'd be
you're
perfect.
Conservative enough.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he'll take a knee with 3 minutes left in the first half. But it won't matter because they won't score.
Yeah, because you're up 7-3. And so you just need to run out the clock for the rest of the game. All right, what else was I going to say? Okay, Brett, you touched on this a little bit, that you would fire your son. Me and Petey do not have sons, but we do have dogs. So, question to everyone in the group, how many points a game would your son and or dog be able to average as Iowa's offensive coordinator right now? I think Kobe could get at least 21. He's going to figure out how to get 3 touchdowns. Mostly because he doesn't understand the concept of punting.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, you take the punt out of the equation.
Yeah. I would say 17 because Knox is just going to run up to you and just like yelp at your face for 15 minutes just because he doesn't recognize you.
That's motivational.
Yeah. At least you won't get off the sideline.
And the only human we have, Goose.
I think he could get to 20 because he's the ultimate coach you're going to want to play for because he's just always happy and smiling at you. He's never going to be mad at you. So, that 37%, that's fine. No big deal. We'll get it up to 40.
That's there we go. And so before we get to the Gamecock football captain's log question, I was playing this week. We're going to pick that game in a second. They're playing at Wrigley Field. On May 17th, 1979, the Phillies beat the Cubs at Wrigley Field 23-22. So the Cubs lost a baseball game scoring 22 runs. If they put up 22 against Iowa, they would have beaten them 5 times this year.
God, that's incredible.
Yeah. So now it's time for the Gamecock football captain's log question of the segment. Petey, would you like, as a Gamecocks fan, the current defensive coordinator or Shane Beamer's son?
I mean, I got to go Beamer's son. Like, can't be any worse.
Correct. We've seen how bad it can get, and it cannot get any worse. And as I mentioned, this Saturday's game, Iowa takes on Northwestern at Wrigley Field, Saturday, 3:30 on the Peacock Network. Mr. Expert, please, we're doing something a little differently. Let us know your pick.
Okay. This is the lowest total in the history of college football. 29.5, I believe it is. This is one of those times where as a bettor, you have to be involved in this. This is a once-in-a-lifetime historic moment. You've got to have money on this game just to say you were part of the lowest total in college football history. It was like when GameStop stock went through the roof because Reddit people just bought it. I bought some knowing I was going to lose money, but I just wanted to be a part of that moment. It was so fucking cool of a moment. So I'm going to have some money on the under just so I can say I was a part of this historic moment when they set a spread under or a total under 30. That is just hilarious. And what's funny, it's probably not even going to get close. Like they only set these. Vegas still has to operate within some modicum of being reasonable. They're not going to set like a 15-point total. So this is the lowest they can go, and it's still hilarious. But it's probably going to go well under. It's probably going to be like a 10-7 game. It's going to be an easy under.
Easily would have cashed last week or Iowa's last game. I mean, it would not have even been close.
Yeah.
All right.
It was like go ahead.
I was going to move on, but if you have something else to say.
I was just going to say, do you remember when Jacksonville Jaguars were the worst team in NFL history that one year?
Yeah.
Like every week, Vegas was making them like a 10-point underdog. And they were clearly horrible.
Yeah.
But it was like, they're an NFL team. There's no NFL team that's bad enough to be a 10-point underdog. And then finally Vegas got with it, was making them a 28-point underdog by the end of the year. But you've got a
28-point underdog to the Colts. Manning. And then everybody bet Jacksonville. There's no way they're going to lose by 28 points.
They did, I'm pretty sure.
I don't remember if they did or not.
So, yeah, they're going to have to get with Iowa and just start putting out 17.5-point totals on these games. But they won't, they're not doing it yet. So
we will see. That was our fourth down segment. Now, we do have the opportunity for extra points if anyone would like to bring up any other topics. Or are all hearts and minds clear?
Do we want to talk about Beamer?
I feel like it's fair to give you a chance to talk about Beamer because me and Petey have talked about Beamer quite a bit. But you're
talking about the connection between him and Michigan?
Oh, is there one?
Yeah, supposedly. I can't remember. I saw something about it where Scallions gave the signs.
Scallions?
Yeah, like last year against Tennessee, when we were wearing the wristbands on defense.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, supposedly Scallions gave somebody the signs.
Well, he needs to do it again
because they were watching. Because Michigan thought they'd be playing Tennessee, possibly in the playoffs last year.
Huh. Okay,
I heard Beamer was fined by Georgia when he was on their staff. Like 25.
Yeah, for getting a playbook or something like that, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So, I remember – I didn't know the connection to Michigan, but I remember one week the Tennessee people on Twitter just started going nuts saying Beamer stole their signs. When we beat Tennessee 63 to whatever we beat them. Yeah. That was the only game all year that the Gamecock defense wore wristbands, which we didn't wear wristbands that game. But my reaction was, I wish that we fucking stole signs, dude. If you tell me that we beat Tennessee and Clemson that year by stealing their signs, that would make me even happier because that would give me some hope that we could beat Clemson again this year.
Yeah.
And
you're not cheating, you're not trying.
Exactly.
We talk all the time about how we want Carolina to aim higher and try to win more and not be satisfied with mediocrity. Well, that would be a good start. Start cheating.
Yes. Well, what
you gotta win the game before they can take it away from you.
Exactly. What were you going to say about Beamer?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, he broke his foot, but I don't give a shit.
That was very much.
I don't all this stuff. Like there was a lot of people that were, oh, that's embarrassing for your coach to get that emotional, and then another side was, oh, that shows that he cares. I don't care. I don't care how he treats the players. I don't care how he acts. I just want to win. If he wins, whatever route he took to get there, that's A-okay with me. That's my only relationship with that man. I don't hang out with him. I don't go to Sunday school with him. I don't play for him. He coaches my team, and whatever avenue he takes to winning, that's the avenue I want him to do.
So, Muschamp was emotional too.
My God, yeah.
Insanely emotional. And so was Spurrier.
Yeah.
So why do we need a stoicism type coach? That if he's emotional, great. I don't give a. That just means he cares. But
yeah, but at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is whether he wins or loses.
Yeah,
and if he wins, we're going to make that into a good thing. Oh, he wins because he treats his players good, and we love him for that. If with Spurrier, he was a shit talker and all that. When he's winning, that was fun as hell, dude. That made it even funner. But
I love them. I love the shit talk.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Spurrier. I love Lane Kiffin. I love all that. But if they're not winning, you're not going to love it.
That's kind of where I fall with Beamer now. And what about my conspiracy theory that he didn't actually break his foot? He just said that to draw attention away from the loss.
That reminds me of. So he broke his foot after Florida. You remember? Did you catch his press conference after the Mizzou game where he was complaining about the interview room?
No,
the press room.
No.
Yeah, he made some comment like, hopefully, with all the renovations they're doing on the stadium, they'll get a better press room for us next year. And he said something earlier in the year too, complaining about remember the halftime where we got the onside kick against North Carolina? He was complaining about the
chain
guys
gang.
eating hot dog. Yeah, those are things that you only say if you're losing.
Yep, that's loser talk.
I mean, yeah, that's what it is. That's loser talk, and I don't have any time for that kind of shit.
Because last year, wasn't it the Georgia game where he got all bent out of shape because they were honoring the women's athletes and didn't get them off the field in time?
Yeah, when we were down 40 at halftime.
Yes, like that is loser ass talk. Talk. And I hate him for it. Like no one, I've never heard a coach talk about some shit like that when they won or when they were winning regularly. That is bullshit.
It's akin to relating it to baseball again. What we've talked before about when a pitcher will give up a big home run, then we'll get a huge bat flip. Then they'll be like, you're showing up the pitcher and the pitcher gets butt hurt. You're mad that you gave up the home run. You don't care that he flipped his bat.
Yeah,
it's just loser talk.
You don't want to flip the bat. Don't let him fucking hit the run.
Yep,
correct. Because I mean, everything he's talked about, like other teams have had to deal with and won. I mean, directly in the North Carolina game with the guys eating the hot dogs, there were two teams on the field. Who was it where the guy quit, the boxer? The guy quit because it was too hot. He got overheated. And it was a long time ago. Guy quit and hold on. I'm telling this story very poorly. Let me gather my thoughts. Two guys boxing, right? They were in a ring. That's where boxing matches take place. One guy quit because he was overheated. And I read a story how the guy who won was in a cab. In the cab, he was like, oh, yeah, that's a shame that so-and-so quit because he was overheated. And the guy who won was like, yeah, I had AC over in my corner. Like,
that's great.
Whew, had to fight through that one.
The South Carolina fan base does this a lot. Like they'll excuse bad years because of the COVID year. The COVID year hurt us. Everybody had fucking COVID years.
Yeah, it's just I'm tired of dealing with that, and the loser talk. I'm tired of dealing with that. His whole exasperated personality, how he's just always exasperated. I'm tired of that as well. And a big reason for it is, like you're saying, we're losing.
Yeah.
If we were winning, I'd be like, okay, the guys.
We'd love it. Whatever. We'd love him.
Yeah.
That's our guy.
Yeah.
But
winning fixes everything.
Yeah. So he should try that.
Yep. That's all it comes down to.
It's a novel approach. Might be too complicated for us.
My blood pressure's high now. So does anybody have anything else to say? Or are we good?
I'm good.
Good.
All right. So there will be no Beyond the Arc on Monday because of this. There will be no Brett's Bets because of this as well, as you saw the picture in here. But Wednesday mornings, check out the Gamecocks football captain's log with me and Captain Petey. And then every Friday morning, you can find Brett's Bets. And as you know, Monday mornings, Beyond the Arc. So here we go. Thank you for watching, listening, subscribing, rating, reviewing, and sharing. I will catch y'all later.